set. Oh, where's Miss Adams? She is right there. I guess I'll call the meeting to order. She'll come and sit down. All set. Okay. The Clay County School Board meeting of January 15th, 2015 will come to order. Superintendent Van Zandt is going to lead us in the invocation and pledge. If you'd all stand.
Join me in prayer if you would. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight a thankful people. Lord, thank you for all that you do for us in the school district. The joy and the pleasure you give us. Fortunate enough to work in this district, to interact and educate students, transport them, to feed them, to do all those things. We thank you for that privilege. Lord, as we come before you tonight, we thank you for those who protect this great nation, where we're free to make choices, to teach, to speak freely. Lord, I ask that you just give us wisdom and discernment tonight for this panel. Give these 5 board members just clarity in everything that they do. Lord, may it be honoring to you. All these things we're asking in Jesus' name.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'd like to welcome you all. Welcome, citizens of Clay County. I want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule and to come out on this rainy night to attend the school board meeting. This meeting is our opportunity as your elected representatives to collaborate openly and make decisions that will decide the future direction of our public schools and the education of our children here in Clay County. If you wish to address if you wish to address the board, there will be an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. You'll find in the back of the room there are yellow cards in the back of the room. These are our speaker cards. You can fill one of these out and you can bring it up and give it to Mrs. Adams up here sitting on the corner. And if you would, you'll notice that there's a couple of blocks on there. If you could please list the specific item that you would like to speak to. If it's a discussion item, it will be D something. If it's a consent, something on the consent agenda, it'll be a C something. So if you wish to just speak at the end, I don't believe we even need cards for presentations at the end, correct? Or we do? Okay, so if you wish to speak at the very end, then you can do like Ms. Piva did and just put at the end.
Just put presentations.
Excuse me?
Just put a presentation
yes.
for the audience.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so your participation is welcome and appreciated. So the first item we have is the adoption of the consent agenda, but before we adopt it, there were some items that have been pulled to discussion. Items C3, C4, C22, C23, and C24. Those items have been pulled to discussion. So I will entertain a motion.
I move approval.
I have a motion by Ms. Condon for approval of the consent agenda minus items C3, C4, C22, C23, and C24. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Ms. Gilhausen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Next up is recognitions and awards. First thing that I just want to mention is that there is going to be a check presentation to Middleburg High School Agricultural Program. They could not be here to do that, but I just wanted to recognize that they're going to be receiving a check in the amount of $7,500 from the Granger Corporation. They are an international industrial supply company who believes in the mission of Middleburg High School's agri-science program, and they wanted to help them continue their mission. So that's going to be presented in Middleburg High School. The next item is Mike Wingate. He is going to introduce school sponsor for some other recognitions. Mr. Wingate.
All right, good evening. We got some great groups coming up here tonight. You know, we try to recognize as many as we can, and these are some of our best and brightest students, and we're just proud to have them here tonight. We're going to call up a couple of their leaders and let them introduce the students. They work with them. They deserve to have that opportunity. Tonight we've got the Oakleaf Junior High the county academic champions this year. We have Orange Park JV county academic champions, and then the Oakleaf High School, they are the county academic champions. So we're going to start with the principal of Oakleaf Junior High, Mr. Anthony Williams. Mr. Williams, come on up and introduce your group.
I'd like to say thank you at this time. First of all, we want to recognize our wonderful kids for doing an outstanding job, for becoming the academic team champs for 2014 and 2015. At this time, I'm going to call some of the students. We have some who are not here due to our science fair. So we have 9 who showed up tonight, so I would like to call them. When I call your name, please come to the podium. We have Skylar Sawyer, Lucas Cathy, Xavier Fuentes, Trevor Taylor, Miguel Daly, Connor Kaler, Jesse Morrisigan, Tyler Ramp, I think we have one more student. Did I forget any student? That's it.
Again, congratulations to Oakleaf Junior High. If you've not been to one of the matches, and I think several of you have, it is quite an experience to be humbled as you sit there and try to play along with them and everything. So if you haven't, get out there and visit one of the academic matches next year.
Excuse me, Mr. Wingate.
Yes.
The parents are trying to take a picture. Can we ask the students to line up in front and let the parents be able to take a proper picture? Thank you. Is there someone from the district who can take a picture? Anybody from the district that can take a picture?
All right. Thank you, Oakleaf Junior High. You guys can have a seat now. Good job. Let me just mention their academic coach, Mr. Miller, is not here tonight because I believe he's refereeing a game, so that's why he's not available tonight, okay? Next up, we've got Orange Park JV. They are the county JV academic champions, and we're just proud of them also. And we have their principal, Mrs. Treasure Pickett, and then their sponsor and coach, Mr. Ken Remsen. He's going to come up and introduce his county champion team.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. Again, I'd like to thank my JV team this year. They did a wonderful job competing. They're a very interesting group to spend time with, especially during practice. But I was very excited to see that they did very well this year, and looking forward to a great varsity team as they come up through the ranks. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the students. I'd like to start off with Avery Miller. Just come right up to the center, please. And then I have Miss Michaela Rogers. Okay, and then I have Josh Kelly. And then Dwayne Brooks. come on down, and Max Adolph, and Darren Candelaria, come on down. So this is our 2014 Orange Park High School JV academic team.
All right, and next up, we got the big guys, big girls here coming up here, the high school county academic champions, and that is Oakleaf High School. We have their principal, Mr. David Broski, and then their coach, Mr. Martin, Mr. Greg Martin. If he will come on up. That group right there, come on up, folks.
Mr. Wingate, I'd like to thank you for the time and energy that you've put forward for allowing this event to take place. Over the years, I've been coaching for 5 years now, and it's not possible without the support of the board and you, so I'd like to thank you. I'd also like to thank our administrator, Mr. Broski. Every year I have to go asking him for just a little bit of money for our dues, so thank you, Mr. Broski. You've made this possible. And then, of course, our team. Not all of them are here, but the ones that are, Matthew Benda, Brett Benda, Osvaldo Bonilla, Aria Henderson, and Jason Guerriere. Sorry. And maybe just to toot our horn just a little bit, the county does have a county academic team, and there are 6 members of that. 4 of them are from our school. They are standing up here, 4 of them in front of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And just to add one more comment to that, that 6-member team will be going down to Orlando for the state competition. We've always done very well as a district, so we'll report back to you. I have a feeling that a lot of these young people we're seeing now, we're going to be calling them boss sometime down the road. So a good-looking group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate. Okay, next item up is presenters. We have none tonight. After that is scheduled citizens' request, and we have none there as well. Next is the superintendent update. Mr. Van Zant.
Welcome, everybody. Board. We've had a very smooth second semester opening here. People are going where they need to go, doing what they need to do. Science fairs, spelling bees, a lot of the really cool stuff that happens every winter is cranking up. We do have some specific graduation data, not much, but we got our high school grades. I'm proud to announce Clay County was on the honor roll again. The Department of Education always has a way of telling us that at the last possible minute as we're trying to release kids for a Christmas break, but I did want to continue every meeting updating you on where we are instructionally, since that is our business and that's what we're here to do. So I'd like to ask Ms. Cornegie, our Deputy Superintendent for Instruction. I keep saying that, but instruction really is where we need to focus. But she is our Assistant Superintendent for Instruction. So Ms. Cornegie, would you go ahead?
Well, good evening. I have a copy for you, so it's in front of you if you'd like to take a look at it. This is just a snapshot of some of the data that we received since our last meeting. As you said, we have received our high school grades, finally. All A's and B's. We're very proud of that, and we applaud our high schools and the great work that they're doing. One of the significant areas of that report card is, of course, the graduation rates, which is our top district priority in terms of school improvement and district improvement efforts. As we have our high school redesign in place, we're working towards continuing to increase our graduation rates as one of those goals. Finally, we have exceeded the national average in terms of graduation rates. We're very proud of that. So this is just a snapshot of our growth from last year, and you can see that it is rather significant. One of the things that we don't usually put in front of you, we talk a lot about graduation rates, are the individual subgroups and how we're making progress across all groups of students. Of course, some of them more challenging based on needs in terms of their ability to graduate high school with a standard diploma. But I put this in front of you because I think it tells a great tale of the work that's being done in our high schools by targeting these groups of students with specific needs and then addressing those needs. If you'll see in our subgroups, all except one subgroup made pretty significant gains, especially with our ESE population. You see a huge growth there from 55% to 63%, which is rather significant. So we certainly applaud the work that they're doing there, and a lot of it is just identifying these students early and then ensuring that a lot of differentiation within the classrooms are taking place. And our high schools have done a good job really with some mentoring programs and things that are in place to kind of encourage and motivate these children that they're doing an outstanding job with. The only group that actually had a decline was our ESOL. Those are our English language learners, and that is typical because it's such a moving target in terms of when they come into the country. And whatever deficits they have in terms of their English language development. A lot of these students, just because they're so far behind, if they come in later in their academic career at the junior high or high school level, they do end up in our adult ed program, which caters to the needs of the adult learners, especially with the ESOL. And so they count as non-graduates, so that impacts that group that you're looking at. The other thing that's really significant about what's happening in our high schools is that all 7 of our high schools met the requirement of the lower quartile. So these are the 25% of the bottom students from the prior year's test scores. In the next year, which would be this year, they had to show a learning gain in both reading and math. And every one of our high schools had met the learning gain requirement in reading and math. And that's a great success for them, and we certainly applaud that. As well as the other area of great significance is all of our schools also had gains within the acceleration performance component, and these are students who are passing, not only taking state exams for AP, IB, ACE, and industry certifications, but passing those exams, and all of them had gains in that. So again, we just applaud the work of our high schools. Congratulations. A lot of those administrators are here today, so congratulations to you, your teachers, your students, and your school communities for the great job that you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cornegie. One thing that was stood out to me, Ms. Cornegie had another chart that showed our student growth over the past decade or more. This is the first time, I believe, in Clay County history that our graduation rate has exceeded 80%. So it's been coming up a couple percent a year for the last few years, and that's a milestone to be proud of. So what we're doing is working, and we're going to keep after it. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Van Zant. Okay. We're getting ready to move into the discussion items. Are there any more yellow cards that anybody has that they'd like to turn in? Okay, this is the last call. Okay, the first item up for discussion is item D2, approve payment of legal services. This is payment for legal services provided by Sniffen and Spellman, PA, for a petition of writ of mandamus. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Studdard and a second by Ms. Condon. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. The next item up is item D2A. This is a public hearing to approve the advertised amendments to School Board Policy 6GX-10-1.02. The District School Board, and I'll go ahead and open the public hearing right now. Do we have anybody that would like to speak to this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move approval. I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Is there any discussion?
I do have one thing that I wanted to bring to your attention
Okay.
that I think that we possibly need to add one word
Okay.
on this. I've read through all of it, but I don't know if y'all will pull it up, but on,
I've got it.
just a minute. What I'm talking about refers back to page 3, the board meetings, and, 1A, B, and C just talks about the regular meetings of the school board. The special meetings shall be held. C, workshop meetings. And the reason that I am referring to that is then when we get over to page 5, I guess I'm just being picky, but it bothers me that the way that we have it worded. In the first paragraph on the top of that page, it says the agenda for regular and workshop meetings shall be posted for the public and other parties 7 days in advance of the meeting. I really think that to be clear on this, we should say the agenda for regular, special, and workshop meetings, because we have 3 different types of meetings, and I think that just gives clarity to that sentence, because we have regular meetings, we have special meetings, and we have workshop meetings. So I would just like to have the word special added into that. Other than that,
I think
have
it
no...
is there. If you read down a little further, it says, and I'll read the whole thing, the agenda for regular and workshop meetings shall be posted for the public and other parties 7 days in advance of the meeting and as soon as possible, but not less than 48 hours prior to any special meeting called pursuant to Florida statute. So it's there. It does address the special meeting, and according to Florida statute, you only have to give 48 hours notice for a special meeting. So it's there.
Okay, but if you don't set the special meeting, if you don't get into a situation where you have to set the special meeting just 48 hours in advance, it would be advertised 7 days ahead, just like the other meetings?
Yeah.
The language as soon as possible, I think, covers that.
Yeah. Or as soon as possible.
All right, that's okay then.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we're clear.
Yeah.
Because it made it look like, I don't know. That's okay.
Okay. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, next item up is, this was pulled from the consent agenda, item C3, proposed allocation changes for 2014 and 2015. Now, I just want to make a comment here. This is being brought only because of a procedural, it's procedural only. This particular item was voted on at the last board meeting, and it passed 3-2. The problem is that I think we forgot to get a motion and a second on it. So it's being brought back to redo it and get the motion and the second. So I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen.
The first, vote that was taken in December actually would not count, since there was no
Correct.
motion and a second. And I pulled it because I'd like to amend the motion to approve with the deletion of the coordination of communications position, and especially now with our third calculation coming in and us being in a true budget crisis, I don't think that we should be spending $61,985 on this position. So I have pulled it for that reason. So I would like to move to amend the motion to approve it with the deletion of the coordinator of communications position.
So are you're
I'm amending it.
You're making a motion to amend the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
So I have a motion to amend the proposed changes to staff allocations to delete the coordinator of communications. I have a motion by Ms. Karakis and a second by Ms. Studdard. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say no. No. Motion fails, 2-3. Okay, so we're back to the main motion. I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2. Okay. All right, the next item is item C4, Personnel Consent Agenda. This was also pulled by Ms. Karakis. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval with the deletion of the position of, with the deletion of the transfer of Coordinator Communications position.
I don't think.
I think we have to have a motion in a second before we can
No.
amend something.
You can have a motion with clarification as to how it should be.
I don't think so.
That's an amendment.
That's an amendment.
Madam Chairman,
The actual motion, you can have a motion specifying how it should be.
I would just suggest for parliamentary procedures, if I may, just in my role, advise the board, I think it would be a lot cleaner, and it's certainly been our past practice to take a motion and a second on the main motion, the item presented before you, and then if anybody wants to amend motions within that, then the procedure you
Just
just
like we
followed
did on
is a
the
very
last one.
clean one to
Right.
do.
Just like we did on
I
the
would
very last
entertain a
one.
motion on the main subject first.
So, I will entertain a motion on the main subject,
I'll
and
move approval.
I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and
I'll second.
a second by Ms. Condon.
And I have
Now we
something
can have
to
discussion.
This has to be approved the way that it's written because of the vote we just took on C2 or C3, because this is the personnel information. It has to match what we have previously voted on. To delete that would be contradictory to what we just did.
And actually, it wouldn't. We have many allocations that aren't filled. So we could go ahead and delete it and
But it's
not
a
filled.
filled position, though. So we can't delete it since there's somebody in that position.
All right.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and a second by Ms. Condon. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 3-2. Okay, next item up is item D3, Human Resources Special Action A. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move approval.
I have an approval
I'll second.
motion by Ms. Studdard
I'll second.
and a second by Ms. Condon. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. The next item is item D4, Human Resources Special Action B. Do I have a motion for approval?
I move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Ms. Condon and a second by Ms. Gilhousen. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, we have nothing under instruction. We have nothing under business affairs. Next, we get to support services, and we have item C22, which was pulled by Mrs. Studdard. And this is appraisal and environmental study on new parcel for proposed elementary school R land swap. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I have an approval from Ms. Gilhousen, a motion from Ms. Gilhousen,
I'll second.
and a second by Ms. Condon. Okay. Discussion, Ms. Studdard.
Okay, I really, I know that there's 3 different items here, 22, 23, and 24, and I pulled them all because they all deal with the same subject, and I was horrified to see that these items were on the consent agenda. This deserves and needs to have very much discussion. Even though this one is on the appraisal environmental study, I would like to enter a conversation on this whole subject of the land swap. So my concern is that
Okay, before we get into this discussion, I want to make sure that we take one item at a time. This first item, C22, really it doesn't need a vote because all we're doing is receiving an appraisal and an environmental study that we voted for a couple months ago to have them do that. So all they're doing is providing it to us.
So you
There's
don't
nothing
need
to approve on that. I
You
don't think
need
we
a motion on this then?
yes, correct. I don't think we do, but it's on here, and because you pulled it, I put it on here. But I don't think that we need a motion or even to vote on item C-22. So
I
if you
think
guys are
that's
okay with that, we'll move on to item C-23. We good with that? We good with that, Mr. Sykes? Yes, okay. All right. So moving on to item C-23 is a resolution and supplemental spot survey to dispose of current elementary school R site, which was also pulled by Ms. Studdard. And before we get into discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen
I'll second.
and a second by Ms. Condon. Okay, Ms. Studdard.
Okay, and as I'm talking, this does get over into the next item too, but it's hard to separate the two out. But I thought that this is the first time that the board has had an opportunity to really discuss this whole land swap situation. I feel badly for the 4 board members here, because I don't believe that you have had the time to be able to go back. Mr. Van Zant was on the school board in 2000, as was I, and we have a history. I went back, and believe it or not, I guess it's good to be a pack rat, but I found all of my paperwork from Saratoga Springs and read through, the minutes from December of, I think it was December of 2000. There were 2 board meetings and a lot of the discussion, just trying to refresh my memory of how we got from 2000 to here 14 years later and what had evolved over that time. I think it would really be beneficial to the board members if perhaps we didn't vote on this tonight and would have a workshop. I know in thinking about this, there are too many unanswered questions right now, and I would personally like to see the 4 of you. I know, Ms. Karakas, you were here when we did a change, a couple years ago, but as far as the other and the reasons why and how and the value exchange that we did back in 2000, being able to look at maps, look at the number of student stations that possibly could be needed. I think it would be a disservice to the citizens and to our school system if we acted tonight on this without you 4 especially having some more knowledge of how we got from 2000 to here and how this came about. I'm very leery of us voting on this tonight. There's too many things that y'all need to know, and we've been through. I mean, Mr. Merrill is assistant superintendent now, but when this first started in 2000, we had Mr. Elliott here, and then a couple years ago we had Mr. Connell here. Y'all need to have the opportunity to go back and really get your teeth into this so that you really understand what we have done up to now and what the needs of the district are. I mean, if y'all voted on it tonight, fine and good, the majority rules, but I'm not thinking about what this district will look like tomorrow. I'm thinking about 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road. What we have an obligation to the citizens and their tax dollars and to our students to make sure that we are acting in the best interest of the school system. And I just don't feel that we're ready for this yet. I think we need a workshop. I urge y'all, please, to have a workshop on this, and let's get everything out and have some really in-depth discussion.
Okay, first of all, let me just throw a couple comments out there. I have looked at it, and I think it's pretty clear. It's a land swap, And when I look at, we're trading 2.78 acres owned by the school board for 2.9 acres, literally almost right across the street. I'm sorry, yeah, excuse me, 20.9. That's literally right across the highway, on the other side of the highway, not too far down.
That's true.
You're right. I don't know all of the past history about it. You know, if you have some concerns, I'd like to hear what they are right now.
Well, one of my concerns is that, you know, this property was a PUD, Planned Unit Development. The
Planned
property
Unit
across the street
Development?
will be a DRI.
Which
Okay.
is, can you define DRI?
Development of Regional Impact. That is the large things such as an Eagle Harbor or a Fleming Island or a Oakley. You know, it's the biggie.
Okay.
Where
Okay.
where they go in, and at that point, usually in order for them to get the approval, now Mrs. Frazier, I saw Susan Frazier back here, she can answer any questions you have about DRIs because she's a master, but I guess Ms. Frazier's here because I don't see Mr. Agresti or Mr. Egan here, right? So I think she's here in case we have some questions. But this is why I wanted you to go back and see this goes back to when we had property on 209. And I don't want to bring up old memories.
I just
Mr.
want to know
Van
what
Zant
the
remembers
concern
that.
is with this swap. I just
Excuse
want to
me?
know what the concern is with the swap.
Is there an issue with the land?
The value,
Is it the value?
we
Is it
trade, when we did the original swap, it was on a value exchange,
Mhm.
okay? The property that we now own east of 315, what they did is they added 77 acres on the other side of the street, on the west side. It was 35 for a junior high school, 25 acres for an elementary school, and then there were 17 acres that was called auxiliary that, according to the paperwork, I read through all this again last night to refresh my memory, the 17 acres did not necessarily have to be in the DRI, it would be in the area of. And then I have some confusion because, and Mr. Van Zant, you may can help me on this, a couple years ago when we redid and updated the agreement, I'm getting mixed signals on what we agreed to. Did we give up the 17 acres auxiliary? Maybe Ms. Frazier can answer that. I don't.
Let's just
Could I ask
direct
her?
the questions to Ms.
Well, I wanted to ask Ms. Frazier because she knows for sure. She's the one that worked with us. But I want to know, did we give up the 17 acres? Because this, remember this chart, Mr. Van Zant? And I'm just wondering, I can't find anything where we still have the 17 acres.
If y'all want a little historical recap, I can ask Mr. Merrill to do this. We have staffed it. This is a very cost-neutral land swap. My memory of 1999, I remember something about the 17 acres, but I can't really answer your question off the top of my head. I just honestly don't remember. I believe the value of the property that we now own was about worth about $1 million more in the value swap than the land that we gave up to get this piece of property.
Now say that again.
I believe the value of the property we currently have is about back in that time, I don't have appraisals on either property, but with the developer, the piece of property we got in trade at that time in 2000 was about $1 million greater in value than the piece that we gave up. That's my memory.
No.
And
That's not true.
that developer was expecting us to build a school. I mean, it was school N or school X, whatever letter it had. I mean, that was my very first board meeting I attended actually in the United States. I'd been on the board for about 5 or 6 months, and that was a big deal when we did that swap. But what we're asking the board to consider tonight, I don't think is huge in the greater spectrum of things. But if y'all want to have elaborate discussion, I'll allow Mr. Merrill to present, and it'll be totally up to you if you'd like to let Ms. Frazier say anything. Ms. Condon seems to have something on her mind. I've
Yeah,
seen her
Ms.
try to
Condon,
speak.
okay.
May I
wanted to say
finish?
that
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You asked me what some of my concerns
Yes,
were.
yeah.
And one of my concerns is the original, see, we originally preferred some property further north than the property we now own. But there were multiple owners on that property, and it didn't look like we were ever going to be able to get a title to it. So we looked at Bennett and Patterson, because right now, as I understand it, that area right now is zoned up to Patterson. So if you put a bunch of houses on that property and there's not a school on that property, they're saying, you know, that, well, they're going to have Shed Road go a little bit further south, and, you know, I know y'all probably all talked to Mr. Merrill, but then you've got, and I don't know exactly how many houses are planned. If we don't put a school on that east side, I don't know how many houses would be built on that east side. I don't know how many more houses they can put on the 22 acres. I don't know how many houses an acre they're putting in, but these are things that I would like to know, because right now, with the enrollment at Bennett and then the enrollment up at Patterson, you know, the answer I've been told was, well, they'll just go across the street to the school. Well, if you do that, then you're going to have 2 elementary school sites and 1 junior high site in that same DRI. And one thing that we have always prided ourselves on here in Clay County is that we, especially for our elementary schools, we try to have it kind of a neighborhood within the area elementary school. You're going to wind up with 2 elementary schools in that DRI on the same side of the street. I don't know how the zoning would go. That would be for a future board. I just hate to set someone up in that kind of situation. I also want to know how many student stations would potentially be generated on that side. What would the need be? I'm concerned about what happened to the 17 acres. I'd really like some clarification on that. When we used, I mean, we've got to sit here and think about, we're using taxpayers' dollars to run these schools. We did a value swap. Same amount for same amount of value. That's how they came up with the 77 acres in addition to the roughly 22 acres on the east side. That made us equal value-wise. Now we've come back. Did we, in fact, let go of the 17 acres 2 years ago? If so, that's tax, that's value. We're not keeping the value. I'm wondering about, for the good of the school system, do we need a school? Will we need a school on the east side if Magnolia West builds more houses and then they fill up this whole area with houses? I mean, I don't think we can put more kids in Patterson, and I don't think we can put more kids in Bennett.
So is your concern that we might have to build another school to...
Well, see, there's going to be 2 elementary schools and a junior high. One of the elementaries was to be on the east side, a junior high and an elementary. Now, right now, with the student stations that we have available, honestly, it'll be a long time, unless something really pops loose, it's going to be a long time before we get approval from Tallahassee to build anything. And y'all know that. This isn't something that's going to happen today or tomorrow, but I'm just saying we need to slow this train down and do some serious homework and look at student stations and really look at the impact on the surrounding schools, what we're going to need, and are we having value for value, equal value for equal value here?
Okay.
Because,
Right.
you know, with the back then, there wasn't concurrency and so forth, and I just think that this is going a little bit fast.
Okay.
I don't know what the big hurry is.
I completely get your point. Ms. Condon, you had something to say. And then I'd like to ask Mr. Merrill if he would like to maybe come up and shed some light. Ms. Condon?
What I was going to say is that based on the appraisal that we received on item 35, C22, I opened it up, and the parcel we currently own is zoned agricultural residential. The parcel that we are being offered is a planned unit development. So I think that that is more valuable than agricultural residential land. I don't really understand all the history, and I think I'm kind of with you, Mrs. McKinnon. I don't really need to understand all the history because I don't understand it's a swap of this for swap of that. Where the 17 acres is isn't what we're being asked to talk about tonight. And so I mean, I hear your concerns about students. I drive that road every time I come to Fleming Island, and so I drive past it all the time, and they literally are similar looking pieces of property. I read the environmental survey. That's actually what my degree and career were spent in. I didn't see anything there that would be alarming, and in fact, when I talked with Mr. Merrill, this would actually save the district $30,000 to $35,000 in things that have to be removed from that property should we want to develop it. So I guess I don't understand what the concerns are about this. That are in that light. If there were a reason, if there were something on there that we would, a storage tank that we would have to remediate, evidence of past uses of chemicals and things like that that we might have concerns with students and drinking water. But that whole area was a dairy farm. That whole area has that kind of thing, and the environmental survey did not show that. So I just don't understand what the concerns are. I guess I wanted to know, did you feel like the wool's being pulled over our eyes about something? Do you feel like someone's trying to pull one over on us? Those are the kinds of concerns that I didn't really understand what the objection is.
Ms. Condon, this has nothing to do with personalities or someone pulling the wool over anyone's eyes or whatever. This is looking out for the best interest of the school district, of where what number of schools do we think we will need in that area due to the number of student stations. And Mr. Merrill, I asked him before the meeting, he said that he certainly can get us information because they can predict how many elementary student stations are coming in junior high and high school. My concern is that we need to look and see, are we in fact going to need 2 elementary schools in that DRI area on the west side? As far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think it would be wonderful for the builders to build up houses. We certainly need to grow in Clay County. I mean, our enrollment is just hanging on for dear life to stay even. I'm certainly not against building and developing, but who knows if it came up that we might only need 1 elementary school over there. I'd say, well, let's tell Mr. Agresti we'll be glad to sell him the land back, because I think we're going to surely get some budget information before this meeting's over tonight. In all the years, we have never had this critical a budget situation. It might be a way to get some money.
I hear
if that it may not be
that.
feasible, but it's something to look at. We need to really be careful with whatever we do.
I hear you on that, and what I think is that we would actually be improving our chances of selling it by having a PUD already zoned piece of property of parcel A as a PUD that we could then take and market very well as a school district if we wanted to sell it, versus an agricultural residential zoning that doesn't have it doesn't carry the same value to a developer. So I hear your concerns, and it's a 1-for-1. So if we would build 1 school across the street, we would build 1 school where we are. We're not giving up the ability to build a school. We're exchanging land, and actually where those neighborhoods are today, they're closer to the parcel A that we're being offered versus parcel B.
What houses are you talking about?
The neighborhoods that are right there, Magnolia West, and the 2 new neighborhoods that have gone in, they are closer to parcel A than they are to parcel B.
Okay. I'd like to, at this time, Mr. Merrill, would you like to address this issue?
Yes, ma'am. When we considered this land swap, I had the staff go through and take a look at all the developments that are in that area, that are planned for that area. We keep a DRT table that tracks how many student stations, how many students are going to be going to what school. This development on the east of County Road 315 is going to have about 337 homes in it, single-family homes in it. That equates to 71 elementary school students who would be going to Patterson Elementary, 22 junior high students who would be going to Green Cove Springs Junior High, and 41 high school students would be going to Clay High School. Presently, Magnolia West and everything on the east side of 315 go to Patterson Elementary School, because right now Charles E. Bennett is at 101% due to the size of their cafeteria. So we've had to zone those kids to Patterson Elementary. Even with the addition of those, if that development gets fully built out with 337 homes, we still have capacity left at Patterson. It's getting up in the high 90s, but we still have capacity left at Patterson Elementary to accommodate all of those children. The swap is basically one for one. The acreage is principally or primarily the same. I think I want Ms. Frazier to hear it, but I think we're getting a little bit better part of the deal, because the parcel we have right now, right down the middle of it, there's all kinds of feed stations, cattle troughs that are just masses of concrete that would have to be removed and replaced, and it's estimated maybe $50,000 to $60,000 cleanup fee just to get that
On
parcel.
which property is that?
Pardon me?
The property that we
The
currently
property we own right now. If you can see, right down the middle of the property is that discolored area. I've been out there and tromped around in it, and it's, again, concrete cattle feed stations, watering stations, still parts of old barns left on there. It's been overgrown, several trees, and again, estimating to get rid of all of that and get it level would be about $50,000 to $60,000. The piece of property on the west side of 315 that they offered us is pasture land. It's about 5 foot higher than the land we've got now. Last time I was out there was cows roaming around in it, and it's basically just pasture land. Just level it off, and we'd be good to go to build. So the prep work would be quite a bit less on that side of 315. I understand Ms. Studdard's concern with the school, with two schools, possibly two schools on the same side of the road. The junior high and the elementary school in that DRI are at a site to be determined down the road when they start to build out that DRI. Presently, they're estimated to be, several miles farther to the west in the DRI. So I don't think there'd be a major issue there, because if you build out the whole DRI, you'd probably have kids close to this school that would go to this school, and then the west side of the DRI, you'd have kids that would go to that elementary school in the west side of the DRI. Anything else we can answer?
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Karakis.
Mr. Merrill, I'm looking through some of that original paperwork in 2012 when we did make the other agreement with Mr. Agresti. Mr. Bickner had given us a stack of the minutes from the 2000 transaction that took place. And that it was referred to as 22 acres, the parcel, and now it's 20 acres, 0.79. So there is a discrepancy there from what the original paperwork says, because it was 22 acres. But it also said that stormwater and retention ponds would be accommodated for, that Mr. Agresti was taking care of them, and it equaled 4 acres. So with this new property that's being transferred to us that we're doing a swap on, who's taking care of the retention ponds and the stormwater, the drainage stuff? What's happening with that?
You've got me on that one.
And I didn't mean to.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm reading through.
I went back to the original swap, and I didn't know there was a 2012. I missed that in our data search. I didn't realize there was another.
Because Mr. Agresti said he'd take care of I saw in the minutes that he'd take care of the retention that would save us from buying extra land when we traded for the 315 East property.
And that's another expense. And I think something else that I completely agree with what Mrs. Stutter is saying, that we as a board should consider having a workshop on this. You know, to quote Miss Adams, our hair's not on fire. We don't have to move, you know, like lightning speed on this. Let's get it right. And if we have a workshop and we decide that it's a fair swap, then great, it's a fair swap. But I do think that, and I don't have it right in front of me this second, but reading through this, by doing this swap, we're going to be responsible for some cost in there as far as, is it rezoning that we're some of the fees that we're going to be responsible for?
Well,
Or is,
yeah, Mr. Agresti has picked up the tab for everything so far, as well as rezoning his own, that
right, but the piece
plot
that
that we have.
take, this will be a swap with zero expense to the taxpayers?
Correct.
Absolutely zero. Okay, so
Okay.
we just need to figure out the retention pond part of it.
I
and
think
the
I'd like to
stormwater drainage. I'm not
Sorry.
finished yet.
Okay.
So, you know, I think, I don't know if you went through and looked at all this stuff too, and I know you took me out there and showed it to me, and it looks like a nice piece of property, and I agree we won't have to do the cleanup that we would on the east side. My biggest concern was it's closer to the dump, the landfill, and I've been very clear about that, and I don't like getting closer to the dump, and I know
Right.
it's, you know, used as a transfer station now, and they're not, you know, but still, that's what it is. But I did talk to Mr. Egan, and he explained what's going in around it, and it all sounds great. There's going to be a town center and a park, and I don't know if any of you have been out there to physically see it. But, you know, back to Mrs. Stutter's concern, you know, this is not our checkbook. It is the taxpayers, and we need to get it right. And so I think that we should consider doing a workshop and getting this information that was given to us to the other board members, so they'll understand the history of all of these properties. And I know you're saying it doesn't matter and you don't want to know, but you have a responsibility to know.
I wasn't saying I didn't want to know. Your concerns, I understand completely, and I agree. We need to, because if we were promised that someone would pay for stormwater and retention ponds and things like that, that is a cost, of real cost to the district. And for that, I would like to know more information. The concern about the 17 acres or whatever that we may have given up inadvertently a few years ago, we can't go back and get back.
No, but I'd like to know why we did it. I cannot, for the life of me. Mr. Van
That
Zandt,
doesn't
do
have
you
anything to
remember?
do with this item that we're discussing.
It is all in. Do you
Well-
remember when we did that?
Mrs. Studdard,
What?
you do not have the floor right now, okay? I would like to invite Mrs. Frazier up if she'd like to speak on behalf of the developer.
Good evening. My name's Susan Fraser. I'm with SLS Consulting, and I'm here representing Peters Creek.
Thank you.
And I have been involved with this project not since 2000, but I was the person who processed the transfers in 2012, the amendment to the development order. And at that time, you did not lose any rights on 17 acres. I have a copy of the 2012 agreement with me. The executed agreement provides that the developer shall convey to the school board 17 acres located contiguous to the school sites for the construction of an unlit athletic fields restricted to daytime use or district administrative offices at any time after the 25-acre elementary school site has been conveyed. The school board may request, and the developer will convey within 6 months of receipt of the request, the ancillary land. So the agreement that was processed, the latest status of the history of this beginning, in 2000, there was a 21.3 acre parcel on 209 that was swapped by a developer for the parcel that you own now. That swap was accepted by the school district at that time. It was supported by appraisals that were provided to the school district at that time. The value of the property that was received by the developer was about $400,000. And the value of the property received by the school district was $1.4 million. You received 99 acres in exchange for 21 acres. That deal was struck. That deal's behind us. We're here really tonight to say you own a piece of property on the east side of 315 that's slated for development as an elementary school. We're offering you and believe it's a good request and a good offer for you to consider, to move that school to the west side of County Road 315. The acreage is all but the same. You've been submitted appraisals that show that the value is the same. And we do believe that this is a consideration that has been prepped. You've had several discussions. Your staff has brought to you the offer, the authorization to acquire environmental reports and appraisals, and you've been submitted those. Your staff has done their job and has given you their recommendation. And so we really believe that the information is before you for your consideration. But on the issue of the 17 acres, the school district still has the right to the 17 acres that it did originally.
And is that 17 acres located beside parcel B?
Actually, I only have one copy, and I'm happy to pass it around. The map that I've got is the actual master plan for the DRI, Saratoga Springs DRI, which is located on the west side of 315. The black box is actually the school site you're being offered, and the purple properties on this map to the west, it is about 2 miles to the west, are the school sites that are in the DRI. So the DRI actually has a condition that says you will provide the school district 77 acres, and they're on that map. This site has nothing to do with the DRI. It's not mitigation for impacts. It's nothing. Because the site on the east side of 315 has nothing to do with the DRI.
She's going to put it up on the screen, yeah.
There you go. Fabulous. So in essence, there's an obligation under the DRI to give you 77 acres in this location, and there's the 17 acres is actually for unlit ball fields or administrative office, and you haven't selected where that is. You may put it, it's supposed to be adjacent to this purple area right here.
I'm trying to get my perspective on the streets where we are.
This black box right here, that's the site that you're being asked to consider.
Okay.
And the north-south white line is 315. Mm-hmm. So there's a 19-acre park. So between the school site and the landfill, we are slated to build over 1,000 single-family residential units. So if there was any specter of contamination, we're going to put residential homes, 1,000 of them, between you and this landfill. And there is no environmental assessment that has indicated any contamination or any impacts to the entire Saratoga Springs by the original landfill that was operated by Clay County.
So and you may not know, but does anyone know how many homes are on the east side of 315 and slated to be built on the east side of 315?
Outside the development?
Outside of their development?
Here's why I'm asking the question. It would seem to me, after you've shown us this, that more homes are going to be actually built on the west side of 315, closer to the parcel you're offering us, versus on the east side where we currently own the property. And so I think it may be of more value to a school district for the trade to own parcel A versus parcel B. If we were looking at a school that is closer and on the same side of the road, because 315 is a highway, and that is one of the concerns that I had with students crossing the highway, but it just seems to me that it may be actually a better location in parcel A than parcel B. But I wondered how many homes are on the east side.
The parcel that surrounds the site that you currently own is slated for development for 337 single-family units. I'm not sure what Magnolia West is it built out.
I think you just read those numbers off, didn't you?
I
Okay,
can
Mr.
answer-
Copeland, Dr. Copeland.
I can answer one thing about Magnolia West. I live there.
Okay.
So D.R. Horton came in and purchased the remaining property within Magnolia West. They are now, and there is under construction, 27 homes. And that when they complete that, they will move to other parts of Magnolia West and build that out. So it should be built out probably within 6 months to a year. How many homes that would be? Probably 150.
And may I ask ask a question? Ms. Frazier, maybe you know this, or Mr. Merrill. When I spoke with Mr. Egan the other day, he referenced that D.R. Horton was also building 900 homes north of where the existing parcel that we own. Now, is that, I'm looking at that right road there.
Actually, the property's been owned by, and I'm speaking on their behalf, but I know what they're doing, because the utility authority is negotiating with us for utility easements to serve the project that you're referencing. The parcel actually fronts on County Road 739B, near the intersection of 209 and 739B. It's about 900 dwelling units, and it was proposed before the recession, and it's just being picked up for development now. So that is, it accesses 739B and does not.
So that was actually further down.
It's actually to the north. If you look at the diagonal property line here,
yeah,
that's the property line of the butts. Their project is immediately on the other side of Saratoga Springs, but it's oriented to the north at 739B.
And we have received a concurrency request from them, and they are factored into to our figures for the elementary schools and high schools. We have received a concurrency request for that development.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one.
Yes, Ms. Gilhousen.
Ms. Frazier, can you answer the question that they had about drainage and who's going to incur that cost? Oh, I'm sorry, retention ponds.
The agreements that were executed in 2000, 2006, and 2012 do not obligate the developer to provide off-site stormwater for the school sites. And so it's not offered on the site on the east side, and it's not offered on the site on the west side. And one other comment that was made about the zoning, the property that you own on the east side is not currently zoned for a school, and you would incur costs to zone that if you were to keep it. On the west side, it would be the same circumstance if you were to desire to rezone it. We will be rezoning our property to work out some things in the near future, and if we can accommodate getting your zoning done at the same time, we're happy to do that.
So if I'm understanding correctly, the developer does not maintain those retention ponds now, and they would not retain them in the future. It's not we're not losing anything in the trade.
Correct. The agreements don't make that obligation.
Okay.
Wait a minute, on the original agreement, he was going to take care of the land for the retention ponds, so we wouldn't have to buy additional land.
I have a copy of all the agreements, and they do not make an obligation for stormwater management facilities.
Okay. Any last questions? We're going to move on. Okay. So I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and a second by Ms. Condon to approve the resolution and supplemental spot survey to dispose of current elementary school Site R. And I think I'll read the resolution into the record. Okay, so the resolution states, a resolution determining that 20.78 acres owned by the school board on the east side of Crossroad 315 of Green Cove Springs, and more particularly described herein, is unnecessary for educational purposes, authorizing disposal thereof in the best interest of the public, and determining it to be in the best interest of the public to exchange this property for 20.9 acres on the west side of Crossroad 315 Green Cove Springs, owned by the Peters Creek Investment LLP, and for other commitments by Peters Creek Investment LLP. That's the resolution. I have a motion by Ms. Gilhousen and a second by Ms. Condon. We've had plenty of discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Mrs. Stutter dissenting. Okay. Next item is item C24, the approval of agreement and proposed elementary school R land swap. I'll entertain a motion.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Ms. Condon has moved approval, and Ms. Gilhousen has given us a second. Discussion.
I'd just like to make a statement to be put into the record that I urge the board to have a workshop and look into this before you agree to it this quickly. But that's just for the record.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Stutter. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no.
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Ms. Stutter dissenting. Okay, we are done with discussion items. Presentations from the audience. I have a yellow card here from Ms. Renalee Paiva.
Good evening, Renly Paiva, representing the CCEA. I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I'm concerned about the third calculation, as I suspect you all are. And I also have been so busy. My intention was for the last 2 weeks was to speak to all school board members, and I only ended up speaking to Ms. McKenna and Mrs. Karakis, and I never got to everybody else. But I am going to call you. I do have your numbers stuck in my pocket. I would hope this board, being the elected officials, will have some conversation with Tallahassee. Teachers are always accountable. We're accountable for everything. And the thing that has bewildered myself, and I think bewildered everybody that I've spoken to, is that we have no way of checking these numbers. We have no ability at the district level to run a program in terms that will say, this is why we lost this money. So we're saying one thing. We see that we have over 35,000, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Adams, students, and the district, the state, the DOE is telling us that we only have 34,707. I have a hard time looking at children and somebody in Tallahassee telling me they don't exist. They do exist. And I understand this is a different way that we have a calculation, but we certainly should have the ability at the local level to know Renalee Paiva has taken 2 Florida virtual classes. Well, maybe she shouldn't be. Maybe the guidance counselors needs to talk to Renalee Paiva's parents, because chemistry is offered at Clay Virtual, or we can do a 7th period somewhere in one of our high schools. We do not have that ability, so we can't intercept these numbers. We have this money leaving Clay County supposedly to Florida Virtual dual enrollment, and we simply do not have a way to calculate who these children are that's making us not 1-for-1 FTE, but rather 6/8 of an FTE. And this is a huge concern. We're not the only ones. If Florida Virtual is on the rise, then I want to know why they're down $12 million. They shouldn't be down $12 million if we're down and all these other counties around us are down. I'm asking in the sunshine for each and every one of you school board members to talk to your friends in Tallahassee who are also elected officials and have them really, at the very least, give the district the opportunity to be able to run a program and see exactly what children we're accountable for. We expect it of our teachers. We should expect it for the DOE to be able to do that for us here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Paiva. Okay. All right. Superintendent requests.
Well, I'll just speak briefly to the third calculation. It wasn't the picture we forecasted. I'd like everybody to know that our forecast of students was in 0.3%. When you're talking 35,000 students, 0.3% is just about a zero error. We were very accurate. We built a budget based off the best information we had, based off the published base student allocation for this school year, based on projected revenues. So my understanding, and I'm not nearly saying I have a full understanding yet of this third calculation, is that a lot of districts in the state rose. For years we've used the term per pupil funding and FTE interchangeably. In May of 2013, all of us sat through briefings at the end of that legislative session. I was up and down I-10 a lot during that session. Did not hear a whole lot of recalibration during session, but in conference and committee week, the very last week of that session, we've inherited what we've dubbed in Clay County as FTE Light, which means that when a student enrolls in Florida Virtual, which is totally up to that student and that family, or enrolls into dual enrollment, they're either holding the money back on the onset for the Florida Virtual students. I can show you exactly who's in dual enrollment, because we physically, after we get the money, have to write a check to the 2 colleges. Well, we have more than 2 colleges we do dual enrollment with, but St. John's and Santa Fe being the larger 2 colleges. So to that end, a couple of us have an appointment with the Commissioner of Education next Wednesday. Ms. Bush all week long has been making me appointments with the chairs and vice chairs of Education Appropriations in both houses of government in Tallahassee. And before it's all over, the governor and his staff on education will hear from me. And so what's that mean to us? Well, that means we're down and we can't control our revenue anymore than the other 66 districts, nor Florida Virtual, nor Florida School and Deaf and Blind. There's actually a few more than 70 school districts in Florida. There's not just 67. But we can control our revenue. So to that end, tonight you approved about $1 million worth of allocation changes as people have retired or moved away during the end of the first semester. We have a little bit of a loss every year at that time. We're not replacing those people between now and June 30th. We're doing everything that we know how to do to conserve money on the expenditure side. We've set certain controls in place where either Ms. Adams or Ms. Cornegie, Mr. Merrill have certain controls from their own division sites. We don't give Ms. McCabe and Dr. Copeland much money to actually spend. But the ones that have budgets have been greatly curtailed, and unless it's been a mission critical expense, we haven't allowed it. We're going to serve students to the greatest of our ability, and certainly to keep within the constraints of Florida statute on ESE and things like that. But it's a challenge. Our team's up for it, and we're going to work on the expenditure side of that equation for you. And as I learn more, I gave Dr. Copeland a deadline of the last week of January to give me his best estimate on what can happen. I'm not going to put him on the spot tonight because we can't tell you everything that we don't know yet. But when we find out the answers to the questions, and if you have questions, I welcome them. So if we don't already have them on the board somewhere, we can ask them. I'd ask for them in the next couple of days. What I would like to do is towards the last week of January invite you in individually to sit down with Dr. Copeland and senior staff and go over what this means to us and what we're doing about it. And again, if you have other ideas to add to the mix, we would welcome them.
Thank you, Mr. Van Zant. School board requests. Ms. Stutter, would you like to go first?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Gilhausen.
I had the pleasure of attending the All-County Band concert this month, and it was a real treat to hear the talent of some of our best and brightest musicians, and the band directors and all of our senior staff did an excellent job putting that event together. I also got to attend the Spelling Bee, which was a real treat to watch the pride and the nervousness and all that goes into that event. And congratulations not only to our winners but to our participants in that event. As far as board business, I have put at each of your desks a copy of the Levy County resolution. It's similar to the resolution that we adopted, but in my opinion, it's a little more comprehensive. And I'm just going to move down here to put it on the screen.
Yes.
So basically, just to highlight what it covers, because I know it's kind of fine print, it not only takes into account the effects of some of the things that Tallahassee has mandated on our teachers and on our district, but it also addresses the students and how they've been penalized unfairly. I think that it would be a good idea to review this over the next month and maybe take action on it next month. Obviously, we'll talk about revisions and whatnot if there's any that you all feel we need to make to it, but I think it's pretty comprehensive, and I think it would give our community members, as well as our state legislation, a clear idea of what we as a board would like to see happen long-term in Tallahassee. It covers high-stakes testing, the continuous revisions that cause financial difficulty and unreliable data, which we had an excellent presentation from Carl Hendricks back at our December special meeting about that, how it's really been difficult for them to accommodate the technology needs for the testing because it's ever changing. It talks a lot about the unfunded state mandates. The inaccurate measures of student achievement unfairly penalizes our students. And it asks the state legislation for a 3-year transition for accountability, measurement, and implementation as opposed to just a 1-year transition period. It asks the state to fully fund all of the mandates that they put on us as a district. And it asks Congress to overhaul the No Child Left Behind in order to reduce test mandates, promote multiple forms of evidence of student learning, and school quality and accountability. So if you all will just take a look at that over the next month, and then maybe we'll put it on the agenda in February.
So is your intent, the resolution that we passed, was it last month? In November? The one that we passed in November, are you saying that this one would just kind of override that one or revise
They
it?
really
Or?
go hand in hand.
They do,
The
okay.
one that we passed previously pretty much stuck to the high stakes testing, which this covers as well, and they say the same thing essentially, but this is more comprehensive because it talks about state mandates and just a lot of the struggles that we've had as a district because of some state legislation and even some congressional legislation.
Okay, all right, thank you. Ms. Studdard? I'm sorry. Ms. Garricus, I was looking right at you when I said that. I apologize.
Gosh, it's out of my head what I had to say.
I'm sorry.
With the, well, like Ms. Gilhausen said, we were able to attend some great events this last month, and congratulations to all our Spelling Bee participants, but especially Joshua Brown, who was our winner, and he's one of those bright faces that we see repeatedly. On a school board note, we were tasked with the instruction of emailing Ms. Adams with our legislative priorities, and I, for one, have not sent anything to her, and I would imagine now with the third calculation that you're looking at some different priorities. So will we see them next month as to what you think will come back to us?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Ransom.
We've been busier in Beavers this morning. I reread through the Florida Association of Superintendents legislative platform. I think it's 11 pages. Highlighted up what I thought was most poignant and helpful to Clay County. And then I had a couple of 3 funding priorities. And I handed all that to Ms. Adams because generally I don't touch things beyond what somebody else can do. So what I'd like to do in a week or so is send you, I guess, basically a draft, and if maybe that would be easier for you guys to add to or something, and we won't talk about your homework grade.
Well, I think the superintendent priorities and FSBA's priorities were mirrored. So
Yeah, they were. Yeah.
We're on the same page, I'm sure. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Condon.
I, too, would like to echo my congratulations to the Spelling Bee winners. I thought I was a good speller, and then I couldn't even write down the words so that I could educate myself because I couldn't pronounce some of them. But our students did a fantastic job. In fact, I believe, I'm not going to quote the elementary school because I'll get it wrong, but we actually had a 4th grader in it, and he got very far. And I'm not sure how he qualified because I thought it was just 5th and up, but that's at the school level. Maybe they didn't have, maybe he was the best speller there. But at any rate, he was a fantastic speller as well as all of our winners that got there. And of course, our kids with their science fair projects. I've had the pleasure of judging some science fair projects. I like judging them better than being a parent doing them at home. And to really see some of our best and brightest, and I just would highlight, and I will not use his name publicly because I don't have his parents' permission, but one of my very favorite projects was at Wilkinson Elementary School, and it was a little guy who was telling me, he was so excited to tell me all about his project, about how paper airplanes fly and which material the best paper airplane can be made out of. And I sure hope that he makes it to county because he is a budding engineer in the making, and I was pleased beyond belief, being the parent of a child with some special learning needs, to find out that he is in our system labeled as an ESE kid, and he's probably not. It probably is some, who knows, but it just, I'll tell you, he's going to be an engineer, he's going to work for NASA, and he knows why airplanes can fly the best and what you should and shouldn't make a paper airplane out of. So he was a fantastic, one of our brightest, and it was nice to see. And the other thing that I wanted to say publicly on the record, I don't know how many of you have gotten these phone calls, but I got a few phone calls after we passed that resolution saying that we have changed our stance, that we as a board, and when we were, those of us who ran for election, were running for election, we said we were opposed to Common Core, and by signing that resolution, we were now supporting Common Core. And I wanted to address that publicly for the record, that I am not in support of Common Core. First of all, we don't have Common Core anymore in the state of Florida. We have Florida Standards, and no, I'm not in support of Florida Standards either. One of the things that, in fact, as a parent, I am adamantly opposed to the standards that we have. But as an elected official, we take an oath of office that says we will uphold the laws of the state of Florida. And until we get those laws changed, and we want to, I agree completely with Ms. Paiva that we need to contact our legislators and have those laws changed. But when we sit on this dais and we vote, we can't, in good faith, violate the state law. And so I just wanted the public to know that I am not changing my stance on this. I am adamantly advocating for our teachers and students to have good standards written by educators, testing our students to those things, but not something that is just obscure. One of the things that I would also echo, Ms. Paiva, that I personally have an opinion on that maybe we could tack on if you see so fit to contact those legislators, is to ask them to take the Commissioner of Education back to an elected position. We're all accountable to our taxpayers and voters, as well as our governor and our other, those legislators are also. But that Commissioner of Education is no longer accountable to you and me as voters in the state of Florida. And I think that if parents were calling and could affect that person's job, I think it might make a difference. I'm not trying to advocate anything politically from up here. I'm just saying that I think that everyone should be accountable to parents and to educators and to students. So maybe I've stepped out of line with that, but that's my personal viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple things. First of all, I did not get to make the spelling bee this past week. I'm so sorry that I didn't get to make it. And I'm most sorry because the little girl who won second place is my neighbor. She lives right across the street from me. And she made sure that they texted me a picture of her holding that second place trophy. And I was like, oh. But anyways, I too was really excited to hear that little Joshua Brown won first place. And I think we all kind of predicted that last year when we were there. We said next year he's going to be it. He's going to win first place. And so I'm very, very excited and want to congratulate those kids and everybody that participated also. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is that I have the great opportunity, as all of the chairmen in the past have had, to sit on the Teacher of the Year committee. And we get to screen these Teacher of the Year candidates. And I just want to recognize this past Tuesday, the top 5 finalists were selected, and I wanted to congratulate each one of them by name. And we had, for the Teacher of the Year, the top 5 finalists, we had Kristen Fullenwider from Clay Virtual, Martin Gaines from Oakleaf High, Esther Brown, she's a kindergarten teacher at Grove Park Elementary, Cassie Crosby, who's a music teacher at Tynes Elementary, and Lorena Domini, a 5th grade teacher at Swimming Pin Creek. I just wanted to congratulate all 5 of those teachers for making it into the top 5 finalists. We will be meeting tomorrow morning, interviewing those top 5 candidates, and so I think the event for me, the best event next to graduation was the Teacher of the Year Awards that we all attend, and it's a great opportunity. But that's going to be coming up January 22nd. That's Thursday night, and at 7 p.m. at the Thrasher Horn. So I hope you all will have an opportunity to come. It's a great event, and I'm looking forward to it. Also, in relation to that was the School-Related Employee of the Year, the top 5 finalists, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention their names either. And so they were Tina Hooks. She is a school secretary at Argyle Elementary. We had Christine Eckersley, a Title I assistant at Middleburg Elementary. Gary Dudney, custodian at Oakleaf Village Elementary. Melody Ryan, an ISS assistant, media tech assistant at Shadowlawn Elementary, and Larry Scarborough, an ESC assistant at Wilkinson Junior High. So to all those school-related employees and to all the teachers that have made the top 5 finalists, I just want to congratulate all of them and wish all of them the best of luck in the next few days. And that's all I have. Yes, Ms.
Let me add one thing. Ms. Condon, you said you like to judge science projects. Well, February the 3rd is the county science fair. My Rotary Club is, works with the school district, and we sponsor that, and the Rotary Clubs in Clay County, and we are always looking for judges. So if you would like to judge, come to the fairgrounds that day and let them, or in fact, call and let them know, because you'd be good.
All right. With that, attorney requests, Mr. Sykes, do you have anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So at that, we will adjourn the school board meeting, and we'll see y'all next month.
See y'all in the morning.
Threatening me.
Do you have a car to get home?